open you up. Let me
Okay.
know.
Well, you're right that I've been angry.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Okay. I have 235 seniors
Okay.
who get 1.5 emails a day from Tennessee Achieves telling them about the Tennessee Promise, and they have to go to school, drive by 3 billboards every day talking about the Tennessee Promise, 2 free years of school, 2 free years of school. It's a last dollar scholarship. I've been trying to tell the district that it's a last dollar scholarship. I've been telling the administrators it's a last dollar scholarship. I've been telling the students and then parents it's a last dollar scholarship. It's not going to help any of our students. They just get their Pell back.
Yeah, but
And so all the students are trying to go to the community college where they'll be better based off of our freshman on track model. They'll be graduating at 80% with their BA in 4 years if we can get them into best fit 4-year institutions.
but I hear you saying that it's free college.
I'm not saying it's free college.
No, I heard you say it just then. You said 2 free years
Oh, yeah.
of college, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm a parent, why wouldn't, explain to me why that makes you angry that kids will be getting 2 free years of school?
Because it was already free before the whole tuition promise, and now it's making them go to the school. Go to Chattanooga State. And,
What's
you
not
know,
making them
look,
go?
on the dashboard, see the dashboard? Look at the graduation rate for black male students at Chattanooga State since 2013. 0.
0, yes.
And look for Latino males. 5%.
5%.
An institution of 9,000 students. And for black males, it's 0. Black females, it's 1. For Latino males, 5. 6 for female Latinas. Can you believe that?
Okay, so it's appropriately priced at free.
Absolutely. And everybody, and all right, everybody, give it up for Keith for going out of his comfort zone. Cool. You feel appropriately out of your comfort zone?
I need a shower after I'm diddly do all over me.
Two diddly do. Excellent, cool. Well, first of all, give yourselves a hand for being here for us, supporting us. That's our flashback. So, what was the point of that? Why did we do that? And what happened? Based off of our question, what happened there? What did you see? What did you notice?
That seems to be your way of telling the story of what problem you found yourself trying to find a solution to, how Keith was able to come in and offer a solution, and then back and forth in time to when it was a problem, you didn't have it, and then you were trying it, and it sounds like the solution was useful. It seemed like that was the story you were telling.
Yeah, absolutely. What other insights did you might have presented themselves from that?
You like basically it was trying to understand your perspective. Like, what do you need? What will make your life easier, instead of him coming in and saying, this is a tool that we're going to give you or you're going to do. It's kind of like, how can we help you? How can you give feedback? So making it more kind of a collaborative process than something that you're just handing over.
Right, so instead of Keith coming in from a top-down kind of perspective,
Exactly.
saying like, this is what you got to do, like, how can I help you? How can I support you?
Well, it sounds like you had already done some data work to understand what the solution could be, and you needed a way to visualize that to tell the story to other people.
Absolutely. And
You took the conversation beyond what's typically done. So you didn't just stay with getting in. Because when you just focus on getting in when you're in the high school level, you're not worried about completion rates. So when you start thinking about completion rates at the post-secondary level, and you're advising in the high school level, that's really a segue to adulthood.
absolutely.
So I thought that was good.
Thank you. So going from
It took me a while because you lost me on the gator challenge. So.
Yeah. Oh, you're from Alabama. I forget that that's a thing from Florida. Yeah, I do apologize.
It's all right.
The go box. But yeah, this idea of access to success, moving beyond this idea of access to higher education to and through, getting to and through college. Yes.
I think this was a challenging situation for Keith, but one thing that wasn't challenging was he didn't have to convince you, to John's point, of the importance of looking at data, and particularly college completion data. So some of the problems we encounter in this space, there's the technical challenge, and then there's the kind of more conceptual or adaptive challenge of saying, you have been focusing on these set of things. Let's also let's look at completion rates. But luckily, you were 2/3 of the way there.
So, I'll give you a little bit of insight. Do you think that the Freshman on Track and the iPads dashboard has been formally adopted by the county?
No.
You said no.
Yeah.
What makes you think?
If you guys only been around for 15 months, the whole process, unless it's scalable, is actually quite difficult. He has access to the full database, but since you only had one graduate student that you worked to death, to scale that, it might be a little difficult.
Could be a really productive graduate student.
But he's already no longer alive, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he actually doesn't exist anymore. We haven't seen him in years. I think he comes up in a second, but you'll at some point in time. There he is. See, look at that. And exactly where it was. Right there he is. So yeah, it's not been adopted by the district. Do I still use it? Do I use it every day? Do I preach about it? Do I go to the other college and career advisor meetings and talk about the usefulness of the Freshman on Track and this, the iPads dashboard? Yes, but it's still not been adopted by the district. So this is like one of our, we talked about identifying challenges and successes. That's definitely one of our challenges. What other challenges or successes did you see represented in our sketch?
I mean, I can totally connect with having 15 browsers open and trying to make all the connections, but then equally I'm in the system leadership role and trying to get my counselors to say, like, if you just use this tool that we've given you, this has all 15 browsers in one, but that change management aspect of it.
So try and communicate that to the other counselors and getting them moving
Right, how
through
do I
that
take something that
process.
you're used to and you're comfortable with having all 15 of these browsers, ONET, Naviance, everybody, to like, I put it all in one for you, but it's something different. So getting people out of their comfort zone and getting people to be invested to say, like, this is the same data that's on ONET, that's in iPads, it's just in Tableau in our data warehouse. And building trust in a new tool. I think that's probably what I'm trying to get to, is building trust in something new.
And then I'm also hearing this piece that implied is the time piece, investment of your time to communicate that to the other counselors, to the staff members. What other challenges and successes did you see? Yes.
The general perception, like the public perception of schools that are easy access and a great financial bargain that are really not a very good option. So communicating that what seems to be the easiest place for you to go might not be the best long-term solution for you.
And that was a piece when we were talking about the math.
Well, the MAP and then the community college, 2 free years, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I know when my daughter was in school, she said that the counselors were constantly telling the kids, go to Essex Community College, it's right here. Go to Essex Community College, it's right here. The kids, that she's like, they could go to a real school. I mean, not that Essex isn't, but I think I have just, even in working with JHU on this whole project, have had my eyes open to how little support many community colleges give kids for success, and the challenges around that. And I don't think very many students or parents realize that aiming higher is often a better solution for them.
Absolutely.
Can I ask you a question? What percent of your building
Any 2 or 4 year technical grade?
So, yeah, that's a good question. About 57%. That's both. Yeah, out of that 57%, 41% historically in the last few years between, I came back in 2018, but I was gone for a couple of years doing consulting work. 41% in that time that I was gone went to 41% of that 57% went to the community college.
Right.
And also to your point, one of the things is Keith mentions quite often is that there was a lot of the community college, particularly the community college in our town. Their main target, their main market is somebody who's 27 who's going back to school. You know, those are the ones who are going to get the attention and focus.
You mentioned that while you were gone, the vast majority of those 57% went to 2-year schools, and presumably some of those would have been eligible for 4-year schools. Are you tracking the undermatching you're seeing? And if so, is it how big of a problem is it? Do you see the, I guess in your school and across the county?
I think it's a big problem. Huge problem. And we are tracking it. And we're trying to do a few things about it. So since then, now we were part-time advisors. Now we're full-time advisors. And we now have a part-time advisor with us. So now I just started 2 weeks ago. I have a part-time advisor that's working with me now. Our teams are becoming a little bit more robust. We've never had a lead counselor in the district. Our district just hired a lead counselor who's coordinating all the efforts. So there's been some shifts to support those pieces, and a part of that was because of undermatching and mismatching, as it were.
And over the past couple of years, working with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, we've been able to make that switch from the autopsy data, or just like the descriptive, to getting into more predictive information. And we now have college advancement mentors in place to kind of bridge that gap between high school and college. We do summer melt. We have a huge melt problem because it's heavily marketed. So Tennessee Promise is a policy that's got great marketing, and it's not always the best fit for our students, and often I think school especially is the worst fit for them. So anything we can do to help prepare them for that reality of something they think is going to be easy. Hey, it's free. Don't worry about it. We got you covered. It's kind of a fast food marketing. It's like, oh, it's going to be coming with my burger and fries quick. But when you get on this particular campus, especially if you're first generation, it's hard to get there. It's not centrally located. You got to take a bus, and you're asked to come back multiple times. It's not a one-stop shop where, hey, you're here. Why don't you take the placement test while you're here? It's not like that. Let's schedule a time for you to come back. You can bring a check, a cashier's check. So it's all these little tiny things that build these barriers. But we now have people in place who are there to help with that advocacy, I guess, is the best way to put it. And even the flat tire fund, even you need bus money, you got it. You need a cashier's check today, we'll take care of that for you, those kinds of things.
This scenario makes me think of, in this context, how, a lot of the vision of this work is we're going to create technological tools and data analytics, and those are going to kind of have this, through adult support, this sort of magic effect on decision making. But I think in this situation, we really underestimate the complexity of this conversation. The fact that it really needs to be mediated through a conversation with an adult, and a young adult who's becoming an agent for her himself. But there's so many factors that basically you're doing a mini policy analysis in your head, because there are all sorts of trade-offs in this particular context. So and a lot more information that you could add. You could look at the variation of rates in community colleges, which vary in Tennessee. And then, because the students can go anywhere in the state to that junior college. You have to, you look at the calculus for your students is really smart. If you're getting 2 free anyway, if you're eligible for 4-year, why not go there? On the other hand, Tennessee Promise, if you talk to Mike Krause and other people, premise the notion, and this is shown through research, that this is meant to target students who otherwise are not going to college. So it's basically trying to target a marginal population in the sense that either they're not going to go other, but for this kind of intervention, and there's some evidence. So it's really complicated, and it makes me think the scale issue here is really challenging. Because we talk about technology tools as if they're going to scale and make decision-making almost automatic. And nothing about this is automatic. And nothing about this is really that easy to scale. You can create all the tools you want. You can create all the fancy dashboards and color coding. You're not going to give that to a student and get a predictably reasonable response. You will, however, if you spend the time maybe.
With an intermediary.
Yeah, exactly, and even there is a maybe. So, I mean, that's just the takeaway I have.
Yeah.
That's the answer.
And I think that's piece too, with the intermediary, with maybe one of the things that we're working on in the district, again, with lead counselor, with more PDs, with more training, with more like buying in on particular philosophies and values and assumptions, and doing a lot of that. So what are you bringing? What are you bringing to the work when you come in? What biases are you bringing? Who are you as an individual when you come in with, you've got this data, but also you've got all these contexts that you're bringing into working with the youth, and so working on that. So we got to the what happened. So now to the piece of so what. What I'd like for you to do is to share with the person next to you, like, how does this connect to your particular context? And how does that connect to these learning objectives? So take about 2 minutes, turn to somebody, and talk.
Whenever you
Okay.
be on some
Great. So in interest of time,
but they are the recipients of
what Keith and I are going to do, we're going to take this, and we're going to put this in a document for you, and we're going to send it out so that you can see it, you can see the challenges and solutions, and perhaps we can talk about later on, who knows, about this. But we definitely want to make sure we share this information with you. So before we leave, we have about 5 minutes. What I would love to do is to report out this last piece, this idea of now what. So what did you learn today that you'll take with you that you think you can apply or maybe modify, and then apply? Carla.
I wrote on my what I'm curious about with our only post-secondary data access point is the National Student Clearinghouse, which is not a great source for real-time data. Everybody uses that as your source, and but we have a new post-secondary planning tool for our students, and so my takeaway is figuring out how to use predictive analytics to map student plans and goals to post-secondary success. So if your goal is a technical degree to work in a technical field, like we have a high demand for manufacturing, are we helping you make that connection into that field and be successful? And that may very well be a good use of our Oregon Promise, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's your goal. But if your goal is a 4-year university degree and we're steering you someplace that's going to burn through all of your eligible financial aid, then we're not doing a good job of matching your goal to your post-secondary objectives, and therefore your outcomes are less likely to be successful. So it's really trying to figure out how we use the planning tool to map to our data, our post-secondary data. That's my next.
You're thinking through.
Yeah.
How much of your students go out of state versus in state?
That's a great question. Not a high percentage, but I don't know.
It's like about 11%,
Do you know?
I think.
As a state, yeah.
I would bet yours are pretty
Lower,
low.
yeah.
We have actually.
I'm sure you do.
Talk to me. We might maybe.
I know, Chris.
It's probably pretty easy. Push a button.
Yeah, maybe. There you go. All right.
There you go. Find your solution by just asking you a
Yeah,
question.
thank you. Right. All right.
You want me to ask more? Maybe Chris will offer more help.
I can help her, but I'm sure everyone else.
Hey, Chris, I had a question.
Excellent. So what about others? How are you going to take what are you taking with you? What are you taking away? How are you going to apply it?
So it's more like a wondering. It's basically the challenge of what you shared was this, like, and I brought up the issue of scale, is that if everything's driven by your personality, right? From what next? Right? You have those now, what? But I'm like, what next?
What
Right?
next,
Like,
yeah.
if you disappear for 2 years and go and, be a consultant again, what happens to that school? But what happens to the partnership, right? Like, so there's a bunch of wonderings more than it is what to do.
We're going to take with it, yeah. Which is great. So I should mention, just because I know we got a little crazy with our time travel paradox. That none of this existed when I had that 2-year hiatus. Yeah. So then now that this exists, I'm working with other. I was just telling Keith a little while ago. I got a message. There's probably 3 or 4 other counselors who are relatively new in the last couple of years that are using this. Even though the district's not adopted it, they're using it at their high schools. So there is that piece.
The groundswell.
Yeah.
So I have a wondering, and I'm not as familiar with this. We talk in the early warning work in high school graduation about protocols, and we think of those protocols as for conversations adults have with other adults. I'm just curious, this situation is, as I said before, so complex, it makes me think that to get to some scale, we need to have structured ways to engage in a data conversation with students, and we need to kind of codify those and not depend on really caring or really smart or both adults to carry that, because that's limited by numbers. So, and maybe people do that already, and I would love to hear folks who work in that space who figured out how to solve that problem, because we certainly haven't solved it in the adult conversations, because as Carla can speak, we often see terrible conversations among adults about all the things we don't want to see in data conversations. I'm just curious if the next students and adults is how it works well.
So I'm Jeremy from New Visions. We spent a lot of time creating protocols for database conversations with adults.
Yeah.
So we've had a fair amount of success with what we call strategic data check-ins, where you have 2 adults sitting, you have a defined set of data that you're looking at, and that you have clear decisions that need to be made. And the idea is like we're going to be looking at this data to help make those decisions. And maybe the decision can be made by the end of the meeting, or maybe we're going to kind of come back and do it. We don't have that same space with students yet. We did write up a protocol last year around a college choice conversation. So if you're a counselor, like let's say maybe Nick doesn't need a protocol because you've been doing this for many, many years, so you kind of like know what you're doing. But even then, like we all like have days when we forget things. So we wrote up a protocol last year around what these conversations should look like, but it's still very much at like the drafting and nothing to report yet around implementation. And I think the challenge there is that these kind of conversations, they just sort of like happen in this gut organic way that like, the kid's running down the hallway. Oh, let me talk to you before you get lunch. Where are you going? Not like, where did you get in? Let's sit down and talk about the different considerations, distance, cost, out-of-state, in-state mom. But like, oh, my principal wants to know where everyone's going and I gotta put it in. So where are you going? Oh, good, let me put it in so I have some data to report.
One of the things that I came across working with the Everyone Graduate Center, the University of Chicago project that they have done over a number of years, one of the tools that they developed was this whole color-coded system of sort of different schools in the Chicago region and the kind of like the chances of success based on a student's attendance and grades, sort of like they had these matrices that are, I mean, it's online, but they had kind of mapped that if a student has like a 3.2 and a 90% attendance rate, he has an excellent chance of success in this school, and he might get into that school. So they could kind of steer students to their safe schools and their reach schools. So that's something that you all might want to look up at some point, or probably talk to maybe Jenny or one of the other people from Chicago who could give you the exact preferences. But I think it would be really a useful kind of thing in this conversation.
Excellent. Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know, how many of you have been in INCAN before? National College Access Network. All right, so in INCAN, in the last 2 years, this is the codification piece you're mentioning, Chris, has been a big part of the conversation. So there's some people like Laura Owen at American University at the Center for Post-Secondary Research is doing work on codifying best practices. There's also there's like 12 areas of competencies from NOSCA and OSCA that talks about best practices for college and career advisors. So it's the codification and like counselor training is being talked about in that sphere. So those are some of the places I would check. Laura Owen at America and NOSCA, and then just you can look at the sessions from INCAN.
So thank you guys so much. We'll send this out. I'm going to also send you the tools and some of our protocols and things like that, so you actually get that. But I know our time is way over. Love to stay and chat if you want to, but I know you gotta. I don't want to take Joanna off, basically. I love Joanna, and I do not want to get on her or Robert's bad side. So. Do what you need to do, but I do thank you. Thank you.